Shalom, friends of Israel. I am Lizerbram, National President of Jewish National Fund USA. Thank you for joining us on our daily briefings. Today, we welcome award-winning American presidential historian and leading Zionist activist, Gil Troy. Professor Troy is a distinguished scholar in North American history at McGill University, currently living in Jerusalem. Professor Troy is also a member of the JNF-USA World Zionist Village Adult Education Committee, and I was personally honored to travel with him this past June in Beersheba as part of our leadership delegation for the village. Gil, thank you for joining us during this important briefing, and over to you, Gil.
Erev Tov from Jerusalem. Thank you, Saul. And indeed, I was thinking when I saw you and I see so many wonderful friends from JNF on the call about the difference, where our headspace was when we were in Beersheba, dreaming, building, doing what JNF has been doing for so many decades and has done so well. And so I have to say that tonight it's a double heartbreak. One is it's hard for me with you people who are such positive people. You understand that Zionism isn't about firefighting, but about tree planting, to talk about some of the harder things that we're dealing with since October 7th. And I literally cut short a Shiva call I was making to a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine, a Saba, a grandpa, David Dishon, who is a legendary teacher at the Hartman High School for decades. This man has been the heart and soul of Hartman High School here in Jerusalem. He's the kind of teacher who, in addition to just inspiring his students with his love and with his smarts, is the kind of person who at a funeral of a young kid, all of a sudden his colleagues would discover that he'd been coming every week to learn Talmud with some young student who had cancer, but nobody knew it because of his modesty and his goodness. And he just buried his 21-year-old grandson last night. And I sat there and I heard the parents speak about this amazing kid who was at his yeshiva. The house, of course, is like mine, surrounded by books, surrounded by values, surrounded by love. The living room is packed with people, some who've known the kid from the time he was born, some just strangers. They told me that David was born in America and that a delegation of Americans had just come just to say hello, just to hug. And we so appreciate the hugs that you guys have been giving us, and they're heartfelt and they're real and they're very, very significant. And the parents were telling this story of this 21-year-old nothing, who was a 21-year-old hero, who was in Gaza, who was, as a commander, at night when you're in what they call your namer, your tiger, your half-track, you have to lift up your head and look around. And he had said to his mom, he said, I wish I could be back in the yeshiva. And she said, I wish you could too. He said, but I know this is where I have to be. This is my place. And she said that, many of us have 21-year-old male children. And she said she dropped him off that day, what ended up being 36 hours before he died. And she said, I always said, I love you. And she said, for the first time, he said, I love you back. And she said, it terrified me. Terrified me. And indeed, but then she said, as he walked away, she saw him hugging his friends and she said, I wanted to join that party. There was such enthusiasm. There was such confidence. There was such a sense that what we're doing is right, that we are on the right side of history, the right side of the Western civilization. She said, hey, I wanted to join the party. Because she said, back home in Jerusalem, we're nervous, we're worried. We wait for those knocks on the door. And then, as a commander, he lifted his head up, and the sniper came and shot him in the head. And this religious family pushed off the funeral by 4 hours so that some of his skin and some of his organs could be passed on to others. So I just have to start by saying, Am Yisrael Chai, and in memory of this beautiful, beautiful young man who had the rest of his life to live, to give, to sing, to dance at his wedding. His name was Eitan Dishon. And that's what's going on. But at the same time, with all this heaviness, with all this sadness, when I finished this phone call, I'm running upstairs to plan my son's wedding on Sunday. My son has been up north since October 7th, but they planned November 26th, Thanksgiving Sunday, so friends could come from abroad and relatives could come from abroad. And my sister, my daughter-in-law to be, my daughter to be, and my son took the decision, which I totally support, that we're going to continue. And that's the dance we've been dancing since October 7th, on Simchat Torah. I want to, in the few minutes I have with you today, I want to think a little bit about this moment in Zionist terms and in historical terms. October 7th, we all know, is the bloodiest day in recent Jewish history. October 7th was the day where we were stuck in Holocaust metaphors, in pogrom metaphors, because we saw the joy, the delight they took in destroying us, in demeaning us, in trying to demean us. And I don't need to go into the details, we all know them. But what's the jujitsu JEW? Within minutes, Israel was saved by Israelis. The government failed. The IDF at that moment failed. Thousands of terrorists were in, and we've seen their plans. Their plans were to hold the corridor of Gaza, work their way up Ashkelon, Ashdod to Tel Aviv. And three things saved the country that day. One, that Hezbollah didn't come in at the same time. Had they coordinated the attack, it would have been an unbelievable bloodbath. And I say that knowing that we already have 1,400 dead and 240 hostages. That's one thing that helped us. Second, this is one of the sickest things I've ever said in public. The delight those sadists took in imposing pain and humiliation slowed them down. And I hope the survivors can take some solace in the idea that every second of pain they endured was a gift in a weird, crazy way to the Jewish people, because it allowed our soldiers, it allowed our citizens, it allowed the neighbors I know, two 21-year-olds and 23-year-olds who jumped in the Jeep and went ahead and fought the battle of their lives and ended up dying. But the 300 soldiers who died that day, my kids' friends who died that day, saved the country. And that shifts it from a Holocaust story, from a pogrom story to a Zionist story. Because you all know that the Zionist story isn't a story that's all perfect. And you all know that the Zionist story has its moments, from 1929, the Hebron massacre, to the 6,000 who died on Yom Ha'atzmaut, to this 2,700 soldiers killed on Yom Kippur. It's a story with pain. But the Zionist response, unlike the pogrom, unlike the Shoah, is to respond, is to fight back, but not to let the death cult of Hamas, in this case, define us, but to say Am Yisrael Chai, and to get married and to have joy. I keep on saying to students, that moment that you felt in the pit of your stomach, oh my goodness, on October 7th, when you first woke up to this awful news, that's a peoplehood moment. But every moment since, when we've been angry, when we've pushed back, when we've fought back, when our heroic soldiers have saved the country, when our amazing volunteers, which includes you, have already started rebuilding the country while it's still in embers, while there's still unidentified bodies. Our ability to dream, our ability to build, our ability to love, our ability to bond is the Zionist part of the story. And that's why the Zionist village will continue to grow. And it will be a center of that Zionist approach, what I call the leap of hope. That tomorrow will be better than today. And it's on each and every one of you and on us to roll up our sleeves and make it happen. We're not passive. We're not victims. But we're suffering. My university students in America, in Canada, are suffering from what I call the triple double cross. Academics, liberals, progressives, not all of them, of course. And there have been some who have stood up. There's some who actually quit the Democratic Socialists of America when they celebrated the massacre. But those who didn't did the triple double cross. First, they double crossed the Jews. They threw us under the bus. That's easy. Then they threw Western civilization under the bus. That's also easy because they've been practicing that for 50 years. But what did they do? They also betrayed themselves. Feminists, silent in the face of the largest, most self-promoted, most publicized act of gendered violence in history. If I touch somebody inappropriately, that's called rape culture, and I'm not in favor of that. But given what they did, how can that be not called out as Hamas rape culture? Why was I the first person in Tablet to call that out? Where were the feminist studies journals? Where were the gender studies associations? I haven't heard them. They betrayed themselves. The LGBT community betrayed themselves. The liberals betrayed themselves. But we don't stop there because we don't wallow. We do the jujitsu. We're Zionists. And so as we sit and call out the triple double cross, and I'm trying to create a new language for this moment, we have our 67 moment. We have our moment, which also happened in 1967 when 2 million American Jews took Israel for granted, took this miracle for granted. Abraham Joshua Heschel said, we got so used to the Tel Aviv Hilton, we forgot to Tel Chai, the battlefield, where Joseph Trumpeldor sacrificed his life. And I see on the eyes of the volunteers who have come here, I see in your eyes that we're now having a 67 moment. From 1967, what happened? First of all, in the American Jewish community, solidarity, we are one, Soviet Jewry. We created a new language, and JNF, of course, was such an important part of it, which wasn't religiously based, but had religious echoes. Yerushalayim Shel Zahav is a religious song as well as a nationalist song. It's a true Zionist song. But it created a new ethos of national unity and peoplehood and statehood. Zionism 101. It also, and I don't care where you stand politically, created a settler movement where the religious Zionist community said, we're going to use Judea and Samaria as our platform for building something new. And I want us to learn from them, not replicate their mistakes, but learn from them and use the Gaza corridor and the South and the Negev and Beersheba as our settlement movement to resettle the land, to invite Jewish and non-Jewish kids from all over the world to join my son, who told me while he's fighting, by the way, my girlfriend, my friends, and I have decided that when the fighting is over, we're going down to rebuild. And I hope in the future we won't just define kibbutzim as secular or religious, but my kids and others will create a kibbutz, which is a mix of Jews living together, religious and non-religious, and maybe Jewish and non-Jewish living together too. So we have a very clear Zionist agenda, folks, a three-part Zionist agenda. One, we absolutely have to fight anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. And I want to say, and I'm sure you didn't expect to hear this from me today, thank you, Hamas. And thank you, professors, and thank you, sick progressives, you illiberal liberals, you totalitarians. Why? Because they've ended that silly debate in the Jewish community about which is worse, left-wing anti-Semitism or right-wing anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is bigotry. All bigotry is unacceptable. And they ended that silly debate. Oh, I'm not anti-Semitic. I love my Jewish friends. I'm just anti-Israel. Gas the Jews. Pro-Israel students at Concordia University across from McGill being called kikes. Globalize the Intifada. Those are anti-Semitic slogans using Israel as the collective Jew. And the zeal, the joy they took in kidnapping us, and every one of us is us, and murdering us, and maiming us, and butchering us, and doing all kinds of perversions, showed that their anti-Zionism had also an anti-Semitic streak in it. And so it collapsed. So yes, our first move as Zionists is self-defense, but also making clear anti-Semitism is not a Jewish problem. It's a non-Jewish problem. I need more non-Jews fighting anti-Semitism. It's their disease, not mine. So that's the first prong. The second prong is a new political Zionism, a Zionism of respectful tone, of unity, of love, of pressing a reset button in Israeli society with your help and with your vision so that we don't repeat the 9 months before October 7th. And we create a new way of working together and living together. And finally, and Saul, I talked about this with you and your amazing group a couple of months ago, and we continue, identity Zionism, the ongoing need to respond to both the Western and Jewish soul sickness, the Western and Jewish psychic crisis, the fact that the Surgeon General is warning us about the epidemic of loneliness and the epidemic of mental health among our young. Let me tell you something. There are bodies we're burying way too young, as I just saw. There are people who are going to be, for the rest of their lives, maimed physically. But what I've seen in the last couple of weeks, and what I see day after day, is the secret of why we still next year will be considered the happiest people on the face of this earth. Because we Israelis understand family, we understand community, we understand eternity, we understand self-sacrifice. On October 7th, I was praying in a minyan outdoors in Jerusalem. We didn't know what was happening. And look at me, I'm not much of a impressive physical character. I stood outside the gates of my minyan, ready to put my body between 40 friends who were praying and whatever's going to come. When you know what you're willing to die for, you have a clarity about what you're willing to live for. That beautiful young boy, Eitan Dishon, knew exactly what he was living for, and he was willing to die for it. Every one of those people who've been buried, look at these amazing stories. They had rich, beautiful lives because they had us. They had that Zionist sense of we are together, we are a people, and no death cult will ever, ever, ever defeat us. So thank you so much, JNF. Thank you so much, family. Thank you so much for all you do. I'm Yisrael Chai.
So Gil, I think I could speak for everyone at JNF and everyone here today. Wow. I think that's the response is wow. Your passionate words go a long way with us. Mazel tov on your son's wedding. And this will certainly be a week of mixed emotions for you, obviously. We have lots of questions, but I only have time for one. So this question is, what are next steps we can take as Zionists?
Thank you for that. It's so important. So first of all, part of it is, and I'm not just schmoozing you, continue to do what you've been doing. The love, as I said, the hugs, the emotional support is really, really important at this time. Continue the building projects, but dig deeper because we're going to need help economically. So that's one piece of it. The second piece is hostages, hostages, hostages. In Israel, it's complicated. I'll be honest with you. I'm debating. I have 240 hostages, whoever's still alive. I have 40,000 soldiers in Gaza. I have 9 million Israelis. The more we talk about the hostages in Israel, the more we raise the price of the hostages, and the more we get distracted from the war that's saving the 9 million Israelis. It's complicated. For you, it's not complicated. I want every single one of you to ask your non-Jewish friends to leave an empty seat at their Seder table for one of the hostages. If you're politically uncomfortable with it, make it a baby. Make it a 5-year-old. Make it a 9-year-old. There are 32 children you can embrace. And that's not a political issue. That's a human rights issue. And of course, I want you to feel that too. So first of all, I want an emotional hug on the hostages because those 240 families need it. Second of all, I want vigils. I'm not hearing enough anger. I want vigils on the White House. I know we're getting into December and into cold. I want vigils on the White House steps. I want more pressure on our members of Congress, on our senators. And I want a 3-pronged political campaign. One, for every single leader in the Western world to get up now, they haven't said it yet, to Hamas, to Qatar, and to Iran, and say, don't you dare allow one of those hostages to endure one more minute of harm. We can only imagine what they've already endured. But the pain must stop now. 2, I want the American government using the power, I've looked it up in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, to naturalize anyone they wish. I want Congress to pass a law saying that as of October 7th, anytime an American is held hostage with a group, the entire group gets automatic American citizenship. So it's 240 Americans, then it would be 240 Canadians and 240 Italians and 240 Nepalese. So we don't play the selectia of, oh, I'm going to free 15 Americans, but leave the poor Jews behind. And 3, we have to strangle Iran economically. No more money pumping into Iran. And the more tied you are into the democratic establishment, the more you have to make that clear. And we have to put tremendous pressure diplomatically on Qatar. So continue doing what you've been doing so well. Continue building that Zionist village and that Zionist spirit. Continue using that word. That's the beautiful gift that Russell Robinson and JNF has given the Jewish people in the last 10, 20 years to take back the night and use the word Zionism. But more important, make sure that we use the hostages as leverage to make the moral fight clear. And obviously name and shame anybody who dares pull down a poster, but it goes much deeper. So thank you for your love, and thank you for your vision, and thank you for that question. I'm Yisrael Chai.
So Gil, you mentioned hugs. In 9 days, we start our conference in Denver, and it's going to be over 2,000 people, and I think it'll be all hugs. So we'll follow your leadership in that regard. So thanks again, Gil, for being with us. Our next speaker is Lieutenant Colonel Tiran Atiyeh, founder of JNF-USA affiliate Special in Uniform. Tiran, we spoke with you a few weeks ago, and we thank you for joining us again to update us. This is our good friend, Tiran. Over to you.
Shalom lekulam. I am today with some kind of a mixed feelings. Today we were announced that there will going to be a deal, and 50 of our hostages, kidnappees, or whatever they call them or we are calling them, are going to get back home. But I'm thinking about the largest numbers, and I don't trust the Hamas whatsoever. And ask me why. There are 100 reasons why not to trust them, because they are not humane in any way. But I hope that this deal will go through and we will see all of them home. And getting to the optimistic way that I'm most of my time is looking at the bright side of everything. As for Special in Uniform, I see so many bright things. And I don't know if you know Akiva, the guy that is dealing with the Iron Dome missiles in Palmachim Air Force Base. And when the war started, he had some anxieties, and I'm so thrilled and excited to see him last week back to the laboratory that he's working in. And he is leading a team of autistic, very, very high functioning autistic that are working side by side with him, and 6 more are working with him at that laboratory, and they are saving life while we are speaking now, fixing those missiles that are going to be launched upon any kind of missile that are coming from Gaza or from Lebanon or from anywhere that those who does not like the idea of us being here are launching upon. As for the other Special in Uniform, we are slowly starting to get the new routine. But what we saw during this month, that we haven't been at the bases, there is a regression with them. So we are starting to work slowly, step by step, to see how can we bring them back to the bases, only to the bases which they can work in safely, not in the south, not in the Gaza envelope, not in Palmachim, unless they are capable and we have an approval for that. But as for now, out of the 1,000 that are part of Special in Uniform, approximately 400 got to the bases. But for the other 600, we are not letting them some kind of a free time. We brought work or jobs, essential jobs, from the bases to the group homes or to a safe houses, in which they can work there with side by side with soldiers, with typical soldiers, to see that they are packaging packages for the combat fighting units, putting some letters inside them. And if you saw my Facebook, you could see some of those letters that were written for the combat fighting soldiers. And you know, sometimes those letters that are being written by someone with special need, it seems like a a young boy wrote them or a young girl wrote them. And I'm hearing so many good vibes. We put the emails of ours and we are getting back, and I will organize all the reaction that the soldiers wrote. And I hope to put it in one file and publish it. But another positive thing that is happening now, especially in uniform, is the band. And as you know, we have 3 bands that are going from one base to another, and also for those whom were evacuated from their houses in Kfar Aza or the Gaza envelope or the Eshkol region. And thank all of those who made that also come through to this point, and they are going from one place to another to make some joy, to bring some joy. And it is amazing to see you saw those who were last time at the conference, saw how much happiness they can bring to everyone that hears them. And more than that, we have so many requests for them to come and perform in front of so many. So this is a brief of Special in Uniform, and if there is any kind of question, I will be more than happy to answer.
So, Taran, first of all, what you did before the war was amazing. Now what you're doing is super amazing. And what is the status of the 3 bands as far as performing on the bases now?
So they have a tight schedule, which means that those who are English speaking are performing in front of mostly together with foreigners that are coming to the Kfar Aza refugees or evacuees. So those are the first band, and the other one, the other 2 are performing in front of soldiers. They were not in the front, but at the let's say home front. They performed, and we had the new one, which they are not professionalists. They are not very let's say, they are not an expert singers, but they are bringing to the table something totally different, and we are so proud of them. And we see that the relationship between them and the soldiers and all of those who are hearing them at the hospitals, for example, or any other places, are amazing. So we are planning also to open the 4th one. We made the audition, and one of those will come to the national conference next week. So this is in a brief of the band.
You know, when they perform, everybody smiles and cries at the same time. And Russell will probably be mad at me for making this suggestion, but maybe we can do a broadcast, a Zoom broadcast over Hanukkah sometime, so that everybody can enjoy, those that aren't coming to the conference, although there's over 2,000 coming to the conference, but can maybe enjoy some of their performance. So, Taran, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to see you soon, and please stay safe.
So I have some words I have some warm words with Russell. So if you want me to talk with him, I will be more than happy. As for Hanukkah, the answer is yes, we will do it by Zoom or by any kind. And I cannot thank enough the JNF supporting us, especially during this time. And I was in so many places which JNF support, and the feeling of familyhood is enormous. So thank you again, JNF family, my JNF family, for supporting us and making us a better place to live in, and more than that, much more safe to live in. Toda rabah. Thank you all.
Okay, thanks, Taran. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Tomorrow will be our last briefing for this week in observance of the Thanksgiving holiday. Tomorrow, we will welcome Yahya Mahamid, an Arab Israeli Zionist educator and Israeli advocate. We will also hear from Ido Eskovitz from Green Horizons. As a reminder, please contribute to our Israel Resilience Campaign and see the impact of your work by visiting jnf.org/support Israel. And don't forget, with Hanukkah coming up, you can help us spread the light by lighting up your home with beautiful candles from the JNF shop. A portion of the proceeds of all candle sales directly benefit our work in Israel. Along with your box of candles, we'll also send you a free JNF-USA blue box. Visit jnf.org/shopping for your candles and other Hanukkah gifts directly from Israel to support small businesses in the North and South. For now, I'll sign off until tomorrow. Our briefing begins at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you for joining. I'm Israel Chai.